gummy bear.
Hey everybody, welcome to GameFest Mornings with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from giantbomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to be talking about EA canceling another game and the latest twist in the ongoing tariff saga. It's going to be a good one because we have Lex Luddy on the show. Lexi, how are you doing?
Rob, I'm not doing too bad. Last time I was here, I launched a website, and the idea of that website was that we'd be funded by a Patreon, and then Patreon...
There's some issues there, yeah.
Yeah, Patreon took down our Patreon 5 minutes before launch.
Like, as we were going live, yeah.
Yeah. Good news is that Patreon is now live.
What's the URL for that? Give me the good old URL.
It's patreon.com/rewinder. So you can check us out there. We have been writing stuff for the last 2 weeks. We've all been very busy with Switch 2 and with Summer Games Fest coming up, so we haven't had the output that we want.
Who does?
Eventually.
Yeah.
But just yesterday, I wrote a thing trying to figure out what the fuck MINDSEYE is. I still have no idea what MINDSEYE is.
We're going to talk about MINDSEYE. Those are like the last handful of stories there. And I'm going to rely on your expertise on MINDSEYE. We're going to figure it out together is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And I've run a couple of other things. I'll be writing more for the site as it goes on. I'm running this site with Scott McRae, Jason Coles, and Henry Stockdale. We're recording our second podcast tonight with Jess Reyes. It was meant to be me, Scott, and Henry, but Henry had emergency tooth surgery. So now we're now we're bringing in an American ringer. And who better than the person that got you kicked out of PAX?
Exactly. That's right. I'm glad you can make that happen. Okay, so it's patreon.com/rewinder, right? Rewinder? That's the...
Rewinder,
okay.
Yep.
People should check that out. It's spelled just like it sounds. And if they want to go, like, there's a website too, right? Like they can go to the website, check things out.
All the content that we write will be free on the website. The Patreon is access to our Discord, and it is early access to our bi-weekly podcast. And everything we write will be going onto the public website. So there's like no content gated. And the content that is gated is like less than 24 hours because it's just like, hey, I'll put the podcast live as soon as I'm done editing it and not, later that day.
Right.
So, come support us, check it out. We've learned some fun things already. Scott McRae has a review of To a T up there. I started playing that game last night. It is delightful.
Yeah, it seems like it. I'm going to check it out. I don't know if anything that Keita Takahashi's done since Katamari's really captured the magic the way that original game did for me, but I always appreciate everything that he works on, and I expect to feel the same way about this one. So, very cool. When I'm looking at you through the camera right now, hello to the audience and hello to you, Lexi. What I'm actually looking at is the thing I was looking at yesterday, which is all the shit that broke on my exclusive feed when I had to move things from Acast over the Patreon tool, and all of the episodes of the podcast did not transfer. So I'm like trying to see if that worked or not. It's I need to get that off this screen and just look at something else.
Website backends, they're so fun.
It's a good and it's like, this tool integration, it's so handy. And then like those companies break up 2 years later and it's like, oh great, cool. I'm at the whims again of these corporations. Fantastic. Let's explain ourselves and what we do here. We're Giant Bomb. Go to giantbomb.com/join to support us so you can become a member. Gets you ad-free shows, gets you some other extra goodies. What it really does is enable us to do what we do, which is make a bunch of content, make a bunch of podcasts, make quick looks for new video games, do UPF, hang out, go to events like Summer Game Fest, which we are in the midst of putting together. It's going to be a good show. We're going to have GB at night live on Friday and Saturday, June 6th and June 7th. I'm getting those dates burned into my head as I confirm more people for the couch. We have a lot of cool people coming to hang out with us, everybody. It's going to be a good time. So definitely tune in for that. You're not going to want to miss it, I don't think. So if you want to help us make that happen, giantbomb.com/join. It's got all the information there about what you can do to become a member, or if you want to support us with extra stuff, and we're getting the store fixed up, store.giantbomb.com. So all of those ways are ways to help us, and we appreciate that. As far as this show goes, most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS feed on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with...
I did want to tell you, I've clearly been on the show way too many times with you because you forgot to send me the run of show today, and I searched in the Google Doc just the word Thursday.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Every day. That's what I do.
Yeah, Thursday GMM was the first thing that came up in my Google Docs.
I don't even use Google. I just go, if you go in the search bar or the address bar of your browser and type in Thursday, I bet it'll come up because that's what it does for me. So yep, that's been handy. And at this point, you've been on enough that you can just do that. I think for any day of the week, I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
All right, EA cancels Black Panther game, closes developer Cliffhanger Games. This is from Mark Spidey Griffin. I had heard like vague rumblings about this the day before this was happening. Could not lock it down or anything like that. So when it got confirmed, it was like, man, it's a shame. This is weird. It stinks. But I also did not really understand where EA was heading with this game because it doesn't seem like it vibes with their current ideas about how they're approaching games. Let's read the story here from Spidey Griffin. Electronic Arts has canceled its Black Panther game and closed down developer Cliffhanger Games. IGN, which first reported the news, cites an internal email in which EA Entertainment President Laura Miele notified staff about the changes made to sharpen our focus and put our creative energies behind the most significant growth opportunities. There it is. That sounds more like EA's vibe right there. These decisions are hard, Miele wrote. Per IGN, they affect people who we've worked with, learned from, and shared real moments with. We're doing everything we can to support them, including finding opportunities within EA where we've had success helping people land in new roles. Yeah, I mean, I guess the email does continue. It says detailing that EA will now shift resources to historically successful games like Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex Legends. EA goes back and forth. Right? All these companies do, but EA especially, Lexi, is one of these publishers. Every 5 years is like, we are all in on live service games. And then 5 years later, we are reinvesting in single player narrative action games, just like you remember. And we're going to make a bunch of those as well as our live service games. But we're going to have a multi-tier thing. And then 5 years later, it's back to just live service games. And now game development is long enough, Lexi, that they can announce a game like Black Panther, open a studio, and honestly, before that game probably really even gets into the meat of development, they've already changed their attitude towards a game like this. And here we are. And they don't believe it's going to be worth their time. It's an opportunity cost lost to make a big budget video game based on one of the biggest properties for a successful film franchise that made over $2 billion or something like that between its handful of movies. How are you reading this?
Yeah, I think there's a few things to unpack. First thing is this isn't the first wave of layoffs EA have had this year.
That's right.
They had massive layoffs earlier in the year as well, and they had layoffs last year as well. I saw somewhere that apparently the headcount at EA is still bigger now than it was this time last year, so they are still rehiring in other places.
Right.
And I think it is a damning indictment of management if you have one of the biggest IPs in the world right now, which is Black Panther, one of the most popular Marvel franchises, and you are making a AAA open world game around that, and you look at the numbers and you go, well, we just can't make this work. There's no way we can make this work. I think that, from the top down, that's heads need to roll shish. Because that's like if they had the Star Wars license and they couldn't make it work, and oh, wait.
You don't need the fantasist here. You don't need to just imagine an impossible world where EA couldn't even make Star Wars work. That's crazy, Lexi. Yeah, go ahead.
This whole thing seems fucking so stupid because, EA were out there. I think I was on a show with you where it was EA double down on IP, where they're we are licensing IP now. We have decided that trying to cultivate our own IP is too much work and it's too expensive.
That's absolutely right.
And then a few years later, they were like, licensing IP actually means that we have to lose a bit of money off the top, and we're not happy with that, so we're going to step away from licensing IP. And from that moment, these two Marvel projects and the Star Wars projects all felt in danger. They all felt like they could be cut at any moment. Star Wars feels like it has enough inertia around it that it won't get like cancelled, but like
Right.
I don't have faith that that Iron Man game comes
No.
out. I have like Motive. It's not like they've treated Motive well as a
Right.
studio. Motive have been kicked around from project to project. They worked on that incredible Dead Space remake, and then they were rewarded by like being shifted onto a licensed IP that they didn't sign up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where trying to report on this stuff and follow the people that make these decisions makes me feel crazy because I come on this show and I don't really know how all of this sausage is made. I don't really know how all these decisions get made. I just go on based on talking to people who are inside of the system and can give me some idea. And you're right. A few years ago, I was just told explicitly that EA was looking at the risk reward, and when they looked at it, it just makes so much more sense to license an IP because building a new IP from scratch is expensive and just as expensive and more risky. So clearly, you're going to license all your IP going forward. And you're right. I think you were on that episode where we really talked about that. That was just a few years ago. And now we're here, and it feels like it's the complete opposite. It's a schizophrenic company, EA. Like they just cannot decide on a path forward because they are so reactive to the information that they're getting at any one moment. And it's like, I think at this point we know, especially in a creative business like making video games, that if you don't have a strong vision, you're going to end up in this situation where you're blowing with the wind, and the wind's crazy because you're selling video games to gamers and we're fickle. So it's going to be an impossible thing to keep up with. Yeah, go ahead.
The only kind of logical thinking I've heard around this, and Alex Navarro posited it on this week's Nextlander podcast, was the idea that years back as well, EA were apparently in the market for selling themselves, and they were like, we are looking to be acquired, and they couldn't find any way to be acquired because they were too big. And if you look at the moves that they have done recently, it is let's strengthen the brands that we believe are already the biggest and cut away all the other ones. So anything that isn't massive right now, they are ignoring pretty much. And so do you think that this is an attempt by, whether it be Andrew Wilson or EA higher up as a whole, to slim down the company into a more manageable size to be acquired while also still being as valuable as possible?
I think that's a factor in terms of them decide, like how they're making decisions. It's like, hey, if we slim down, there's multiple benefits there. We could be acquired, but also it just enables us to be more limber when we have to make changes in the future, and it makes us more profitable in the meantime, and that makes us look better to investors. There's a lot of things there. I think they're well aware of the fact that it would be difficult for them to get acquired anytime soon. It's not impossible, but the temperature around that has definitely cooled off, and the bidding for an EA would not look like what it did for Activision. So I think they would probably have to settle for a much lower price, and I don't know if they're ready to do that. But I mean, whatever. You're right. That's definitely one of the things they're considering, and it's what it sounds like. In this letter that was sent internally, we mentioned it, but the brands that were mentioned: Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, Apex Legends. That's a short list. There's not a lot of other stuff on there. EA just acquired Codemasters. It feels like 5 minutes ago. There's no mention in any of their games. Now there's word that things are looking pretty bad over there. Not making the World Rallycross game anymore with them. So it's weird.
And like very pointedly, in that list is not Mass Effect, but then they later go on to say like, don't worry, Mass Effect's still in development, which feels like, we don't think of this as a big deal anymore. But also, we're still working on it for now. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It does feel like the one thing that will kind of sneak through while everything else is getting caught in the strainer here of like, oh, we don't want this junk. And then these other games are stuff that you could just see how they fit with what EA likes, which is make one game, support it, make money on it for a very, very, very long time. That's if Battlefield can work, and that they're putting a lot of effort into that. Like there is a huge sort of salvage project happening right now to make Battlefield something that can make sense in the modern video game shooter landscape. And then Sims that's a machine. That'll be fine. Skate's another question. Like, can they make that make sense? And then Apex Legends. God, this list is actually kind of grim when you just say it out like that. Because Apex Legends is another one where that's hit its peak. Like admittedly by EA, it was kind of like on the down slope, and now they're trying to revitalize that as well. They have a lot of revitalization projects happening at the same time, and they don't seem to have other replacements ready, waiting in the wings to take the place of these big games if they don't work. So yeah, grim. I think they kind of have no option but to like lay people off, because that seems to be the only way they could save money, which is not where you want to be as EA. Go ahead, please.
The only thing that like really seems to be performing well for them from the last couple of years was that college football game. And when you think about it, like that game can only grow so much because outside of America, nobody cares about college football. Like it is a American game for an American market, maybe a Canadian one, but like you are not going to have British people or Europeans or Asian territories buying college football each year. That thing is going to cap out in a very serious way. And like that's why they stopped making those games, was they capped out. So
it's why a lot of sports games, like similar kind of like college basketball and stuff, they stopped making those long before they stopped making, around the time they stopped making the college football game. The college football game was like a myriad of factors, including there was definitely some lawsuits coming down the pike about using the likenesses or the perceived likenesses of college football players when you weren't paying them. So it was like that stacked on top of the fact that they had already kind of grown the market as much as they could. Now, College Football 25 was a massive success for them. It was huge, made just about more money than just about anything else that released last year, even though it just sold to Americans. But you're right, 26, 27, 28 versions of that are not going to do better than 25 did. In fact, it might take years and years and years for them to like find a way to kind of get back to the point of having the excitement they had around college football. They would have
to take another 10-year break.
I think it's really it. Yeah. And whatever, they're still going to make a lot of money from this college football game. But that's a card they've played now. And we know that, making a lot of money from something isn't necessarily the game here. The game is growth. And we're not talking about college football growing. And really, we're not talking about a lot of these things growing. Apex Legends, I think it's going to be very hard for them to make that grow again in a long-term sustainable way where it happened. Like, Apex Legends launched and it was like 3 years of really solid, just making a ton of money, maybe longer than that even. And now it's like on the other side, it's just not going to be able to replicate that. EA Publishing as opposed to EA Sports is going to keep doing its thing. They'll probably find other sports to exploit there at some point. But for EA Publishing, I don't know. It looks bad. And I don't know what the future holds over there. Okay. Up next, Trump's tariffs blocked by court with refunds possible. This is from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. A federal court has blocked U.S. President Donald Trump's plans to institute major global tariffs, a plan announced in April that sent global markets into a frenzy. Trump attempted to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement the tariffs, but a 3-judge panel rejected this. What all this means for Switch 2 and other gaming products, however, is unknown at the moment. The ruling said Trump may be able to still implement import taxes of 15% for 150 days on certain countries where the U.S. is in a major trade deficit, however. So essentially, he tried to use a rule to be like, we're in an emergency, so I can do this, because otherwise Congress, it's a bunch of wonky stuff, but Congress usually gets to make these decisions. He did it unilaterally, and he found a way to justify it with a law that said you can do this if there's like a war or something happening. And the court's like, well, there's no obvious war that makes sense for any of these tariffs, so we're going to pull it back. If you want to have tariffs, you could do it for 150 days. And then after that, that would automatically trigger a congressional vote. There are some other tariffs, just like get this out of the way. Maybe people will be aware of this. I don't know. There are some other tariffs on stuff like steel that like these like segments of the economy that like are considered differently that he can still tariff. But like that's different than like putting tariffs on consoles and computer chips and stuff like that. He's going to appeal. The White House is definitely going to appeal this, Alexi. But it does feel like the whole like wait out Trump's insanity strategy is likely the best thing that most people can make a decision about right now. It's like, hey, that there's the saying of Trump always chickens out. This is going around Wall Street right now, and it's like a financial strategy of he always backs off everything he does. So make your financial bets with that in mind. Now, this is not necessarily that, but it's him losing out. And I think when the White House gets into these deliberations with other countries about, hey, let's make deals. This is a major chip that he just lost, where it's like he can no longer actually threaten them with these tariffs as long as this is happening. And it sounds like there's a strong chance that even if this were to go to the Supreme Court, and he's got a lot of judges in his favor there, even there, this might struggle. So it feels like tariffs might not be long for this world and a lot of the segments we're talking about, but I don't think that's going to stop him from trying to find other ways to do it, because he just loves them so much. It's so weird how much he's into tariffs. I don't know. How are you feeling about this story? Like when you're over in your country, looking over at us, kind of kicking ourselves in the balls. How do you feel about all this?
I think like it's been weird. I know some people who study and they have their doctorate in politics, and the thing that they studied was like Trump coming to power in 2016. And so it's been really interesting talking to them about it, because they get like a weird schadenfreude from watching things go wrong for him every time they do go wrong for him. But then there's also the reckoning that you have to have of like, yeah, but that fucks us all over too. It really does. Think when things get more expensive in America, that has a knock-on effect on Ireland or Europe or Canada or wherever, because these economies are so interconnected now. And I think that like we've talked about it on this show before, but like when Sony raised prices on PlayStation, they raised them in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. Because they were like, these are more stable economies, and we know that if we raise prices here, they can stay at that level for a while, and we won't have to move them around again. Right. America, they're like, it's so unstable, we don't even know where we'd move them to if we were to. So yeah, it's like it's hard for any international company to figure out what it's doing. I have talked to like people who are straight up leaving America and setting up companies in places like Ireland, because they are like, I don't fancy doing business there, especially if I employ like indie game studios where they're like, I employ several trans people and it's no longer viable and safe for me to work with them there. So we are incorporating in Ireland, and we're going to see if we can set up a studio in Ireland instead, because it's an English speaking country and it's connected to Europe, and it's this and that and that. But yeah, there's a lot of things like that going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a bummer, because it's like, okay, in this moment, it does look a little bit better, because it does feel like he's going to sort of run out of energy on the tariff thing. And, we're going to blink and we're going to look up, and it's going to be midterm election season. And that's going to be really bad for him, if they let fair elections happen, which is a fun thing to say as an American. But yeah, that's going to be a really rough voting period for him. And so he's going to be focused on other stuff. And yet the damage has been done. Like it's this is a place of extreme privilege, but I did grow up in America. I did get accustomed to this idea of, the U.S. dollar is the world's currency in a lot of ways. And I think he broke that. He's broken that. And the comfort that we've been able to, enjoy is going to be permanently undone here. And it's going to look very different in 10 to 15, 20 years. Like, I think the rest of the world just realized, even if this passes, even if things go back to normal for the United States, we're going to get to a point where at any moment, a bunch of assholes could vote in a dumbass, and they could do this all over again. So you cannot rely on the United States. And so we're going to, and that's on top of everything you mentioned, like people not wanting to travel here, people not wanting to start business here, people not wanting to invest here because it could be dangerous for their employees. It's, excuse me, and it's just going to be bad for us long term. And it's been 5-6 months. It's been 6 months of this. That's it. And that's all it took to really kind of ruin everything.
You've been booking the couch and booking Summer Games Fest appointments. Have you felt a different vibe from the point of view of less international visitors around this year compared to last year?
A lot of Canadians. The Canadians seem like they're still ready to risk it. Other than that, no one really. Yeah, it's not a lot of people from other countries, unless unless it's like very specifically they already plan to reveal their game at Summer Game Fest, and so they were going to be there, and they're biting the bullet and they're just going to take their chances. That's it. It's not a lot of people outside of that. So yeah, it's definitely noticeable. And again, I don't blame anyone. I get it.
Quick question: what should I do with this now? Because I haven't left over, and it's pretty much worthless now. It's worth about as much as Monopoly money. So like,
that's right. Yeah, I would just go out, use it as a napkin or something like that. That's a $50 bill for audio listeners.
I do think there is actually a food stain on this.
Oh hell yeah! Well, there you go. So
it definitely came from America.
All right, we got plenty more headlines to get into, but we're going to take a quick break. This is where you could take advantage of the ad-free versions of the shows if you go to giantbomb.com/join. I did giantbomb.dom again. What's with that? All right, let's go to the ad break. I need to break myself. This episode of Giant Bomb is brought to you by giantbomb.com/join. Join us there, become a member. It helps us make fun stuff. It gets you ad-free content. It also helps us make some extras here and there that we'll give exclusively to you as members. It's giantbomb.com/join for $10 a month or $100 a year, where you save $20. You can support us in making all the cool stuff that we make over here at Giant Bomb. Once again, that's giantbomb.com/join. Become a member now. All right, we're back for Game Mess Mornings. I'm Jeff Grubb. That's Lex Luddy. We're going to talk about some more video game news, starting here with Cyberpunk 2 is probably further away than you hope. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. Earlier this week, CD Projekt Red confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 sequel is now in pre-production. For the moment, the project is also being internally called Cyberpunk 2. However, the newfound forward momentum doesn't mean that Cyberpunk 2 will be arriving anytime soon. CDPR co-CEO Michael Nowakowski has indicated that the sequel may be years from release. Our journey from the pre-production to the final release date takes 4 to 5 years on average, Nowakowski said during a CD Projekt Red's investor presentation. Having said that, and keeping in mind that each project is unique and there are many variables that influence the final outcome, I will not lead you into specific years. I think we get it. We knew how long the original Cyberpunk took, right? That was 50 years or something like that. It was crazy. It's a really long time. So games are only taking longer. They've also spent a lot of time kind of sprucing up Cyberpunk and making it as good as it possibly can be so they could set the stage for a sequel. They're also working on Witcher projects, and they had a bunch of other stuff. I know they've also cut some projects. I think they had a multiplayer Cyberpunk thing they were going to work on. They cut that. So yeah, they still have a lot of projects on their hands though. So no matter what, it feels like it was going to take a long time to get a Cyberpunk 2 sequel done. If this pops up in 6 to 7 years, Lexi, people are going to be really craving a Cyberpunk. So I don't think this is a problem. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I don't think anyone who realistically follows that studio would think that they're a 2-game studio. Like, realistically, they're not going to have 2 games of those sizes in full-scale development at the same time. And I think if you look at their financials, they disclose how many people are on each project at any given time. And they have pretty much said, like, yeah, it's all hands on deck for Witcher 4 now. Like, everyone's just moved over.
Which
and
makes
those
sense.
people, and I suspect that when they say, like, oh, we have, like, 15 people on Cyberpunk 2, like, that's R&D. That's community management for Cyberpunk 1. That's
it's a concept. It's like one concept artist, right? Yeah.
So I like not surprised that this is super far away.
Yep, same. I'm like wondering, am I at a point where I would be looking forward to a Cyberpunk 2? I thought Cyberpunk 1 was just fine, 3 out of 5 for me when I reviewed it. I thought that what was the Phantom Liberty? That was the DLC.
Yeah.
I thought Phantom Liberty was definitely better. It's still not a game that ever really like clicked with me the way it did some people, which I was happy to see. I have nothing against Cyberpunk. So I think I'm at a point where I bet with like the things that they learned, they could make a really awesome Cyberpunk 2. And I think I am looking forward to it. So yeah, this is great. I'm ready to see what the studio is going to do, as they have now had many years since the last Witcher game. This next Witcher, I bet, is going to blow people away. and then they'll have a chance to follow that up with Cyberpunk. This studio, like it's not necessarily like a model that other studios can follow, right? Like it's pretty hard to be the company that makes The Witcher and Cyberpunk. But does it feel sustainable to you for at least CD Projekt Red?
But for CD Projekt Red, it seems
Yeah, for
sustainable
this team.
because like a Larian or something, they now have diehard fans of their own. They have fans who are fans of the studio, not fans of the game. They are fans of the studio, and so they will go wherever the studio goes. And like that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of games these days, is getting that initial install base of people who will spread the word and be like, no, this is good, or bumping it up the Steam charts at the beginning. Stuff like that is the big hurdle for a lot of games these days, and they have that built in, so that will definitely sustain them for a while.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's the thing that does make any kind of developer or publisher really work these days, is if you have a large enough audience that is really just into you as a company, which is hard to achieve. I think even the biggest companies, actually for the biggest companies, it seems like the most difficult, right? Because they're the most faceless, the most corporate. So this is maybe the right size where it's like, this is a big team, big studio doing a lot, and yet they can still have that scrappy feeling that you can get behind as a fan. So yeah, I think you're right. All right, up next, second Persona 4 actor snub could signal full new voice cast for remake. This is from Scott Baird at DualShockers. A second member of Persona 4's voice cast has confirmed that they won't be returning for the remake, even though it hasn't officially been announced yet. There have been numerous rumors regarding a Persona 4 remake, one in the same vein as Persona 3 Reload, which people are big fans of. This would fit with Atlus's new approach of porting and remaking some of its classic games, as they were only available on a handful of platforms at the time. On May 28th, voice actor Yuri Lowenthal commented in a now-deleted Blue Sky post that he wouldn't be returning in the Persona 4 remake, despite asking to reprise the role of Yosuke. This is despite the Persona 4 remake not officially being announced, and now a second voice actor has confirmed that they won't be involved in the Phantom game either. Aaron Fitzgerald, the voice actor who provided the voice of Chie, I think it's Chie, right? That's got to be it. Chie Sadanaka in Persona 4 has confirmed in a Blue Sky post that they haven't been asked to reprise their role in the remake, expressing sadness at not being able to play her again. It bears mentioning that, unlike Lowenthal, Fitzgerald has never actually stated that they contacted Atlus about the Persona 4 remake, although that's the vibe I get from the way she was talking. Okay, so what do you think is happening here? Are they doing a ton of voice rework? Which sounds like the game could actually use in some cases to deal with some problematic issues, and maybe they don't want to pay these actors again. Yuri Lowenthal sounds like he might be expensive these days. He's Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, the Persona 3 recasting made a lot of sense to fans because of who some of those people wound up being.
Sure.
And Sega maybe not wanting to work with them again for those kind of reasons.
Right.
And it really, like, the performances in Persona 3 were great. And I'm sure that they looked at the positive reception to the new performances in Persona 3 Reload and were like, well, the reason is different, but people will still be okay if we change the casting, if it's good performances. So the reasoning this time very well may just be either we want new young voice actors because we don't want actors like Troy Baker, Yuri Lowenthal are both in their 40s going on 50s. Like, there's a lot of actors who are much older now playing teenage characters, and like I can imagine Atlus being like, maybe we want younger actors to do these voices. And on top of that, they're probably just like, yeah, this is way more expensive. And the whole point of remake projects is that they're meant to be a little bit cheaper and they're meant to be a little bit more economical to make. So I can totally see them being like, why not just get a whole new cast again? And that way, that also gives us freedom to, if we want to go and make more spin-offs from Persona 4, or we want to go do more things like that, we have access to cheaper people to work with. If we want to do another Persona Q, which is their crossover game, they then don't have to. And like, the idea of making a Persona Q now would be really fucking expensive to do the voice acting, because you have all these different voice actors who like are quite well known from the Persona franchise, quite well liked, and the Persona franchise is way bigger. they would be able to demand a much higher cut of the paycheck. So yeah, I there's numerous reasons why this happens. I can understand why they would be bummed out. I would be bummed out too.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if I wasn't contacted, like especially if I wasn't given a heads up or anything. But I think that's probably part of the business that these people are in. And like it's the shitty part of the business, but it is part of the voice acting business.
Yep. Yeah. It's it does feel like it's mostly a cost cutting thing. It feels like, and I think you're right about they probably want to do more with these characters in the future if they can, or at least have that on the table and want to, set the price for themselves lower. Yeah, I think that's what it is. The game probably will get, as some people in chat are saying, significant rewrites. Because
it needs it.
It needs it.
Yeah. Even compared to Persona 3, which super needed it in select spaces. Right. Persona 4 needs it in a lot of places and with like just general characterization.
Yes.
So I can see them being like, if we're gonna rewrite these characters, we may as well make them feel like different characters.
Yep, exactly. It's take this opportunity to like just rip off the Band-Aid and make it feel completely fresh and different. And if it is different voices, yeah, I think it's cost cutting. But there's probably some consideration of like if it's different voices, the one-to-one comparison will just feel inherently different than if you have the same voice actor saying something different. And now people are like, oh, why'd you change it? Because there will be some people that will be that way. So this helps avoid that. I think, a little bit.
Matt Rare Monkey in Twitch chat makes a really good point, which is Persona 5 X is coming out on the 26th, and that's a gacha game, and they are totally going to want to include those characters from other Persona games at some point. They're going to have those characters as gacha characters in that game. So,
without a doubt. All right, next headline here. Let's see here. A Death Stranding anime is in development, according to Hideo Kojima. This is from Ben Lyons at Game Reactor. If you thought that June's Death Stranding 2 on the Beach and the planned live-action adaptation of the game coming out from A24 was all the Death Stranding that was in development at the moment, it would seem that you'd be wrong. In an interview with Vogue Japan, as noticed by VGC, Death Stranding creator and Kojima Productions founder Hideo Kojima has mentioned that an anime based on the unusual franchise is also in development. The specifics and additional details were not elaborated on, but as this is coming directly from the mouth behind the idea, we have to assume it's pretty accurate. Death Stranding as a cross-media, transmedia empire feels a little strange. I don't know if it has that kind of gas. I think it's really wild as a game. I think it's got plenty of juice there. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's kind of wild that Metal Gear couldn't get a lot of these gears turning after years of saying that it was going to get these gears turning. Of,
right.
Oh, we're doing a movie. We swear we're doing a movie. We have a director this time. We swear. And suddenly when you talk to people about the Death Stranding expanded universe stuff, there seems to be a much more of a vibe no, this is happening. We are going to go into production on this stuff, and there is going to be side stuff, and there is going to be an anime and a movie, and it's this game is maybe more impenetrable than Metal Gear is to a widespread audience, because at least Metal Gear you can ground yourself the same way Dan does, which is this could really happen. This could really happen. The B-Man could really happen. And you can't really be the BTs could really happen. The BTs could really, really happen. It's weird.
It's weird. I think it obviously can work in all these other mediums. I don't know. It's hard to imagine people dragging themselves out to a theater for the live action one. I suppose an anime pops up on Netflix. I don't know. There's a million of things that have done that, and I've mostly just ignored them, but they find an audience. There's a bunch of Castlevania spinoffs that seem to do just fine. Maybe they're thinking it could be like that. I could see that. I don't necessarily know if I need that. I know I don't need that.
My favorite thing about this franchise being so big is that Norman Reedus still seems to have no fucking idea what the game is about.
Never changed, Norman.
It's so good, where every time he's on a panel and they're so tell us a bit about the story, he's like, Kojima, you take this one, buddy.
Yeah. And I don't want him to figure it out. That guy looks like he just wants to chill. That's a chill dude who just wants to chill and then go ride his motorcycle and have AMC follow him around with cameras while he does that. Which, hey, I mean, my favorite thing about Death Stranding, not the Monster energy drinks or whatever it was, or any of the other product placement. The best product placement, the best thing in Death Stranding was the ads for his AMC motorcycle show, Norman Reedus' show, like in the bathroom in that game. It was just such a weird crossing of the, looking at the fourth wall and just shattering it. And I love that. That was good stuff. All right, let's see here. A record-setting 60-plus partners confirmed for Summer Game Fest. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. This Friday, it's finally time for one of the gaming's biggest events of the year. That's not right. That's next Friday.
Yeah, next Friday.
It can be described.
That had me in a panic. Holy shit.
I know, me too.
I was like, wait, what the fuck?
I'm like, should I be on a fucking plane right now? What's going on? Now the event's official Threads account has announced who will be attending this year, and it's a very, very impressive lineup. Microsoft and Sony are always there, but this year, Nintendo have confirmed their participation using a Switch 2 logo. Okay, let's just stop here. Okay, so 2025 partners, round one. He's calling them partners. Do you think that means much more than like maybe... What do you think the Switch 2 presence is going to be at Summer Game Fest?
I think it's going to be a sizzle reel during the actual like live show that he does.
Yes, they've done that frequently.
And I think it's going to be like, hey, we provided Square Enix some Switch 2 units so that they can demo Dragon Quest 1+2.
Yeah, and Bravely Default or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think it's going to be they're showing a game. I do, like, especially if that rumor of them having their own direct in a couple of weeks is true. Like, why would they show anything at Summer Games Fest? A direct always gets more eyes than Summer Games Fest itself does, especially if Nintendo ups it as a big thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think even the fact that it's a Switch 2 logo in here, and I'm actually like looking for it to see it for myself, but I think it is a Switch. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's not a Nintendo logo.
It's not a Nintendo logo. That to me, that sounds like a commercial. That sounds like a commercial for the Switch 2 inside of the Summer Game Fest show. Which, sure, why not? They probably will do something like that. And we also know, Keighley can play fast and loose with who's a partner or whatever. Like, oh, there's going to be an Xbox showcase happening. That's part of Summer Game Fest. And it's like, well, they were going to do that no matter what. But sure, if you want to call it part of Summer Game Fest, you can do that. So my question to you is, what do you think about this Summer Game Fest? Do you think it's shaping up to be something? Because I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes. Last year I was talking to people on the couch. I'm like, hey, I think Summer Game Fest is working. And now, like, we haven't been there. We haven't seen anything. I'm ready to be proven wrong. In this moment, though, it feels just a little bit like maybe this isn't quite the replacement for E3 that it was building up to be.
I think it feels quiet in a way that even as someone not going, like, usually if you're not going to an event, you still get a bunch of emails being like, hey, you want to come see your thing? I have not been getting that many of those, even for smaller things. And, like, that's usually my barometer as a journalist my size, which is like, if there's bigger things, I have to seek them out and I have to go to the publisher or the PR and be like, hey, I'm guessing you're showing something here. Can I come see it? Smaller things tend to email you and be like, come see your thing. And I've gotten very few of those smaller things emails being like, come see your thing at Summer Games Fest. I know Day of the Devs are literally doing they're like showing stuff to press early over the next few days. So there will be Day of the Devs, and Day of the Devs is always awesome. But I definitely don't get the vibe that like there's a lot of other stuff there this year in the way that there was last year. Which might just be down to like maybe 2025 kind of shot its load early this year. Like maybe. It was a really fucking busy year early on this year. And now we have a console launch, and now everyone's just going to be like, well, I guess we should just port our games to the new console. Like that might just be the strategy for the end of this year.
Yeah, it does feel like, is this indicative of some wider problem? I think you're right that a lot of people did push their games into the first half of this year, and I think we know why they did, because they were worried about Grand Theft Auto 6, and they were unsure about like what the Switch 2 launch was going to look like. So it's like, let's just get out of the way now. And I think that has also disrupted game announcements and the plans for marketing a lot of these games that it might even just be like a year away. They're like, well, do we want to like go into Summer Game Fest, plant our flag, and then get immediately trampled by Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, obviously, Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed into 2026, pretty deeply into May of 2026. But a lot of people making the plans for Summer Game Fest didn't know that, and so they probably like, let's just play it safe and see what happens. Does that mean like we get a month away from now and everyone's kind of changed their mind and they're ready to announce stuff? I don't know if like you can turn the ship like that necessarily. So yeah, the second half of this year might just be quiet in a lot of ways. But again, I'm ready to be surprised. I think we're going to get updates on a lot of stuff that we already know about from Summer Game Fest, and then a couple of big announcements here or there. But I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering, which, whatever. That's fine. There's plenty of good games to play. Switch 2 is going to be out that week. I'm going to be fine over here, but I just think Summer Game Fest is feeling weird.
Yeah, the Switch 2 being out the same week is, like, so fucking weird. Like, the last time a console launched during a showcase was like the fucking Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah. God.
It was the Dreamcast, right? It was the Dreamcast.
The Saturn is the one where they were like.
It was the Saturn, yeah. Saturn was the one that they launched
out now.
Out now, yeah.
And that was a shock to everybody. It was only in Toys R Us. It was a really bad move. It kind of doomed the Saturn from the start in the United States. Did all right in Japan though, because of Sagata Senshiro. Is that his name? Yeah. All right, let's finish up with Mind's Eye. What is going on with this game? Mind's Eye Studios. Let's start here, actually. Mind's Eye Studios reported to be a poor play. Oh, no, yeah, please.
Here's my question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Without looking at your notes,
okay.
What is Mind's Eye?
I mean, my hunch from watching the trailers is it looks like a Grand Theft Auto clone where it takes place in the near future. Like, it looks like it mixes in some Call of Duty stuff, maybe because of the guy's haircut. I don't know. What is it?
So you're actually totally correct. But if you had been paying attention to any of their marketing over the last 3 years, you would think that it is part of a metaverse platform.
Right. That's everywhere, right? Yeah, everywhere. Yes. And apparently, so I don't know. I didn't include that stuff. That was another story. So everywhere was this platform that built a Rocket Boy, founded by Leslie Benzies and some other people. Leslie Benzies worked on Grand Theft Auto Online. They had a bad breakup because Leslie Benzies like, I'm fucking made this thing, Grand Theft Auto Online, when you guys didn't want to, the Housers, and I got it ready for launch, and now it's the biggest fucking moneymaker we've ever had. Pay me. And then they didn't. So he sued them, and he left, and he started to build a Rocket Boy, and he got a bunch of investment. And in the years while he was doing that, he was promoting this idea of Everywhere. That was the name of this big metaverse thing that was going to have creation tools and all this other stuff. And they've gotten really quiet on Everywhere recently as Mind's Eye has sort of like replaced it. And now VGC reached out and said, hey, what about Everywhere? And apparently Build a Rocket Boy has told them that a lot of the Everywhere functionality has been built into Mind's Eye, which, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so it basically means that Mind's Eye, only on PC, has level creators. A really in-depth level creator.
Like Tony Hawk, okay.
Yes, and that level creator will be used for online missions, kind of like GTA Online. The catch is, if you look at their 2025 roadmap, which lists everything that will be in the game at launch. In the game at launch is the story campaign, which apparently is about 15 hours. It is these Play Mind's Eye missions. Play Mind's Eye is what they call their multiplayer side of things. It is 3 roam around the city, 1 bullet point. 2 combat missions. 6 races. 6 more checkpoint races. 3 drone races. A horde mode map. And another horde mode map if you get the premium pass. What isn't in there is multiplayer at launch. So you have the multiplayer missions, but it won't be until fall 2025 that multiplayer capability is added to these missions. So when this game launches in 2 weeks' time, it will have multiplayer missions that people can create and you can play.
And that's that, like, reiterate that. When is this game out again?
This game is out in 2 weeks. This game is out in 13 days.
Yeah.
When this game launches, the future section of its roadmap is in summer. Special collaboration, community updates, new missions, extra missions, new pack for the premium pass. Then in fall, it's new single player modes, which Again, I still don't know how much of the story for this game is going to be in the story at launch, because if you look at old store pages for this game before they updated it and kind of disconnected it from Mind's Eye, they were saying that the story mode was going to be episodic. They're now saying it's a 15-hour campaign. So I'm not sure what the ending to this game is going to fucking be, if it's going to actually be a full campaign, or if it's going to be like, stay tuned for more, rest of fall, multiplayer, new missions, and then if you have the premium pass, extra missions, and a new pack, whatever that means. Winter, special collaboration, free roam updates, new missions, major adventure, start stream universe.
Okay, so they're just now, eventually they just devolve and degenerate into random words, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what this game is. I've spent hours over the last week trying to figure out what is in this game, what this game actually is, and what they are selling. It is $50, worth noting. It's not free to play. Originally, I think it was meant to be free to play, and it was meant to be within everywhere as a free to play experience. That no longer seems to be the case after IO Interactive picked up the publishing rights. It's also worth knowing this game has had some trailers. You might have seen the trailers. They are bizarre.
They're bizarre. Like, they're not outright bad, but there's a vibe about them that feels off, that feels like slapped together, like it's hiding something. Who knows? I'm not Leslie Benzies. I'm not the closer. I'm not the one that gets the shit done. So maybe we're missing something. Maybe we're not seeing the vision here of this game where apparently you play as Jey Uso with a machine gun in a GTA game. So let's check in with some people who work there. We can't confirm with some of these things, but let's just, read what's here. Mind's Eye Studio is reported to be a poor place to work. This is from Marcus Persson at Game Reactor. Build a Rocket Boy, the studio behind the upcoming Mind's Eye and former Grand Theft Auto creator Leslie Benzies' new team, has been in the news. This after former employees raised the alarm that the studio is a nightmarish workplace. On Glassdoor, a place where employees past and present can anonymously review their workplace, the rating is a 2.1 out of 5, with former developers highlighting a work culture characterized by excessive overtime, incompetent leadership, and internal conflict. In short, it doesn't sound good. Here are some of the reviews. The most toxic, unethical senior leaders I've ever encountered. Another one said, a sad byproduct of capitalism. And a third said, lack of clear identity and structure. Now, again, we can't corroborate these. They are anonymous. It is on Glassdoor. Although I would wonder what is the motivation of someone doing this. Well, the people making the game have some ideas of motivation about who might be behind it. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah. It is worth noting as well that in 2019, there was a second legal disparagement between Take-Two and Build a Rocket Boy. Basically, Take-Two sent a preemptive legal warning, which I'm only kind of familiar with what that means, to Build a Rocket Boy, warning them against the fact that they accused them of attempting to solicit Rockstar Games employees. So basically claiming that they were poaching employees. I think it is really interesting that we have recently heard that the studio culture at Rockstar has gotten much better. And then you look at the place where the people who exited Rockstar around 2017, 2019-ish went. And people are saying that the culture there is somewhat similar to how the Rockstar culture had been described in the past.
Yep. Anyway, I find it hard to believe that is true. When they're doing things like this. Let's read this next story. Mind's Eye boss accuses competitors of paying for smear campaign. This is from Alex Coe at DualShockers. When you have an action game directed by the former lead developer of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, chances are expectations will be sky high for it. Unfortunately, in the case of the upcoming game Mind's Eye, it seems to have worked the other way around. Mind's Eye's development is being directed by Leslie Benzies, the former president of Rockstar North, and he acted as the lead developer on Grand Theft Auto 3 up through 5. Unfortunately, for Benzies and the studio, the reception for Mind's Eye so far has been less than stellar. Mark Gerhard, the co-CEO of the studio developing Mind's Eye, suggests that the negative reaction, and these are from previews who are like, this game seems like it might be a problem, He says that those negative reactions were due to a paid smear campaign against his studio. Previews for the game went up recently, and so far impressions haven't exactly been glowing. Over on Twitter, one user summarized some of the negative feedback, which mentioned reportedly a broken mess filled with bugs, a 15-hour-long story, driving feels stiff, cutscenes looked great and were well animated. There you go, a paid smear campaign that likes the cutscenes. Enemy encounters lacked depth, and enemies just run at the player. Combat generally feels fine, very GTA-like. Arcadia is the content creation mode that you can get into by stepping into a portal, only available for PC at launch. I mean, it sounds like, it sounds like an unfinished game, and a lot of previews called that out. I know some of the people that did some previews, and they sounded like they do about all their other games that they're skeptical of, where it's like, this seems like it's not going to come together in time for the launch, which is 2 weeks away again. But I tell you what, when I hear someone say this is a paid conspiracy smear campaign against me, and then I read other people being like, there's a toxic work culture with unethical leadership, things start to fit together for me a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the actual messages? Because they're pretty wild.
Yeah, let's do it.
So on Discord, this is from a random Discord user who just has a bunch of letters as their name. And they kind of seem to start this out of nowhere. They just said, do you think that all the people who reacted negatively were financed by someone? Then Mark Gerhard, who is a moderator in the Discord, replies to that comment. Yeah, 100%. Someone else then puts in a message that just says lol. Mark then puts in another message that says, doesn't take much to guess who, laughing crying emoji. Someone tries to address this and says, a co-CEO for a studio implying another studio is paying previewers to talk negatively about your game is an absolutely wild comment to make in a public environment in any situation. Mark replies to that as well. Not wild when it's true, ... And then a GGA YouTuber called Game Roll replies to that and says, replies to this conversation goes on for a while, and then he says, so just to clarify, you believe that individuals, be it content creators or otherwise, have been paid off to criticize MINDSEYE? And Gerhard responds, no, I never said that. Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
I do know that there are bot farms posting negative comments and dislikes. And then he left the chat.
All right. Yeah. To me, that sounds like the kind of grasp that you would expect a co-CEO to have in a toxic work environment. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I'm not there. I can't say for sure. It sounds like a goddamn mess, though, Lexi. And I think I got that sense just looking at the initial MINDSEYE trailer, where it's like, okay, it looks like a video game, but why? It just felt cut weird. It felt like it was hiding something. And I think what it's hiding is there's not much to it. And then there's a lot of stuff missing from it that they promised to have, which, game development is hard. I get that that's how that happens sometimes. All right. We'll follow MINDSEYE. We'll when this comes out, Lexi will have you back on the show. We'll catch up on it and we'll see it. We'll see what happens then. I bet it's going to be interesting, unless it gets delayed, which feels like maybe could happen. I don't know. Although I think the reason it's coming out and they have made all these changes and got rid of everywhere or implemented everywhere into this is because they need to release a game, probably because they need to make some money. All right, let's get to the poll question. This is from yesterday. I have it right over here. Let me get it up so we can get the results for you all. Yep. What are you more excited for? Switch 2 launch or the SGF game announcement, Summer Game Fest? 52% of people are more excited for game announcements. 48% of people are more excited for the Switch 2 launch. I don't know. I kind of look at this as like, are you more excited to play games or to have games announced? Which for me, it's always going to be play games. But not everyone is looking at it that way. I'm sure a lot of people are like, I don't really care about anything at the Switch 2 launch. So of course I'm not excited about that. And I can appreciate that. But I'm still kind of surprised that more than half of people are more excited about commercials.
I mean, this makes sense because, Giant Bomb hates Nintendo's content.
That's right.
They hate Nintendo games. They never talk about
Nintendo
them,
haters,
which is really annoying.
Across the board.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and I think you've cultivated this kind of community that really doesn't respect Nintendo in the way that they should.
Yep, I think you're right. You nailed it, and it's a failing of this website for sure. All right, new poll question in a second. Before we get there, Lex Luddy, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at Lex Luddy .xyz. I changed my handle on Blue Sky, so that's where you can find me now. I run Start Menu, which is a website for helping people break into games media and games writing and things like that. I am also part of rewinder.co.uk, which is patreon.com/rewinder. We're an independent media outlet. We're going to be covering a bunch of Switch 2 stuff. We're going to be covering Summer Games Fest. We're hoping to do some live streaming at some point. Me and Scott kind of want to do some of that. So that'll be fun. But it's very much so a place that we can have like weird in-depth discussions, like me trying to figure out what the fuck MINDSEYE is. So you can read my write-up on that. And yeah, come check us out and see your work.
All right, new poll question: do you think Persona 4 will get announced at Summer Game Fest? I think that's a possibility. It feels like it's a possibility. We'll see. We'll get the results of that. We'll talk about it here on Game Mess Mornings tomorrow on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, here's what we're doing later today. Voicemail dump truck. I think we're also going to get some other stuff recorded in the hopper, take care of a few things for some embargoes. So look out for more stuff on the site tomorrow. And then, Game Mess Mornings will be back, and then we'll have UPF. I think the plan for UPF is to play Roadcraft. Although there's a chance, I'm trying to work things out. Maybe we'll do some Elden Ring Night Rain as well live. We're going to see. It'll depend. But definitely some Roadcraft. Starting at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. That'll be noon Pacific. All right. I think with all that out of the way, Lexi, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talk about video games. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Oh, hey, did you know Wind Waker's good? Has anyone talked about this before?
You just playing Wind Waker?
Yeah, first time.
It's real good. It's very good. Yeah, I've heard that before once or twice in my life. Thank you all for listening and watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Yummy like a gummy bear.